today we've got somebody I'm so exhilarated to have, because we've got somebody who does so much for the good of humans and non-human animals alike. We've got Zoe Rosenberg. How you doing?
Hey, I'm all right. Thanks so much for having me.
We're doing all right considering. Now,
Yeah.
uh, Zoe Rosenberg, you are an American animal rights activist, the founder of the Happy Hen Animal Sanctuary in San Luis Obispo, Slowtown. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Um, you've gained a lot of recognition just by being a direct action animal rights activist and doing lots of stuff, chaining yourself to slaughterhouse gates, supporting, protesting at sporting events. You're my hero. So let me just ask you right off, what was your initial thing growing up where you're like, hey, these animals, they're pretty cool. Let's not, let's not be mean to them. What was the first thing?
Yeah, well, growing up, I just always loved animals so much. My mom's actually a veterinarian, so we always had tons of animals in our house. People are always bringing her animals, and yeah, it was just a lot of chaos all the time with animals. And I just loved them so much. You know, we had goats and dogs and rabbits, and I just had such a deep connection with these animals. And at school, I would run around the playground, like defending bugs that like other kids were trying to step on rainy days. I would like get a whole group of kids together to collect worms off of the concrete, and so people wouldn't step on them. And I just always really wanted to protect animals. And my dream for the longest time was to start a dog and cat rescue when I grew up. And it was when my family got chickens when I was 10 years old that I connected with them, and I learned about what chickens were facing, and I realized that the plight of farmed animals is so much worse than what just about any other animals are facing, and almost no one was doing anything to help those animals. And that's when I knew that this was the work I wanted to do.
Hmm. And chickens, the sheer number of chickens that we kill, they are the most slaughtered animal for food in the world, daily, yearly, like that. So when you went vegan at 11, is that true?
Yes. And I mean, pretty immediately, I was like, I can't just not eat these animals and not eat eggs or whatever. I have to do more than that. I have to rescue them. I have to help them. And so that was also, around the same time that I, had this conversation with my mom where I was like, can we start a chicken rescue? And she said maybe. And I was really expecting her to say no. So I was very excited when she said maybe. And everything just spiraled from there.
Now, was it hard to go vegan at the beginning, or did you have help, or did your parents kind of help you with that, or did you turn your parents vegan? How did that work?
Yeah, so my mom was actually vegan before me, but she never really, pushed it on me in any way. Like, she didn't, you know, tell me all the gory details about factory farming or anything. She just raised me to be kind to animals. And it was, so I kind of went on the journey independently, but then of course it was very helpful to already be in a household where that was a normal thing. I'm sure it would have been a lot more challenging if, everyone in my family had been eating animals, and, that would have been very different, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, years later, you start to get more involved with protesting with animals. Can you take me through one of the first experiences you had actually um, protesting in a way that was sort of, confrontational?
Yeah, my first protest was actually a protest I organized at the San Luis Obispo Bacon Festival. I must have been 12 years old at the time. And I, yeah, it was just this huge line of people going outside of the building it was being held in. And I was standing there with a megaphone. I think two other people came to the protest. It was very, very small. We were just standing there, and I don't even remember what I was saying on the megaphone, but it really pissed all these people off, whatever I said. And at one point, it got every single person in this like long, long line down the street chanting bacon, 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 like kind of counter protesting me. And yeah, that was my first protest, and it was fairly confrontational, or ended up being fairly confrontational, even though it was just outside. It wasn't meant to be some big disruption, but it turned into that. And from there, I learned about Direct Action Everywhere and got involved with DXC and started a few months later organizing more disruptive protests at grocery stores and restaurants. And that was an exciting time. It was often just me, giving a speak out in a Chipotle or something. There was one time when the Chipotle turned up the music super loud because they didn't want people to hear me. And there were times that, I get dragged out of places, get banned from places. The police would come and detain me and tell me I couldn't come back. Yeah.
And that's incredible. And you must have some moments where your adrenaline is pumping a lot,
Yeah.
confrontation is a heck of a thing. Do you think you're getting used to it as you keep going on and getting better at this?
In some ways, I mean, there's definitely a lot of adrenaline, and I definitely, get nervous before certain things still, before the NBA disruption I did a couple years ago. I was very nervous, but I think the thing for me, like the thing that makes me less nervous is less so even just how much I've done it and more the deep connections I've formed with animals that, allow me to be able to do this work, because when I feel nervous, I'm able to kind of focus on them and remind myself why I'm doing this. And then I, understand that what they're going through or what they've gone through is so much worse than anything that I'm about to face doing whatever I'm going to do. And that reminds me of how important this work is, and that it doesn't matter how uncomfortable I am.
Yeah. I had the joy of interviewing Ronnie Lee, the founder of the Animal Liberation Front. And he famously went to prison for 12 years for doing his thing. And he did a whole hunger strike to get vegan food and everything. But he said whenever he felt bad, he just remembered that the animals have it worse, and that got him through. And I think that's just, on my deathbed, I'll just remember, hey, if it's good enough for all the animals that have ever been slaughtered, I'll be okay. I'll be fine. So have you met also comrades doing what you do? Have you made connections with actual human animals that are long-lasting friendships?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say all my closest friends are organizers with Direct Action Everywhere, pretty much. And it's been such an amazing thing being a part of this community, because we're all just so passionate about this work, and oftentimes we're even risking our freedom or risking our lives together to fight for these animals. So yeah, it's been I guess kind of a hidden blessing to make those connections, even though we're doing really difficult things.
Yeah, you are doing very difficult things. I think we should just jump right into the thing that is the most recent. And this is when I had been retweeting everything that was going on with you, because I didn't like what I was seeing. And can you just tell me a story about how the stuff in Sonoma County started?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a long story, but it really starts back in 2018, or at least my part in the story starts in 2018, with a mass open rescue at Sunrise Farms, which is a factory egg farm in Sonoma County that has over 400,000 chickens. They have both hens housed in cages and hens housed in the cage-free or free-range facilities that, of course, are equally terrible. And people had been doing an investigation of this facility for many months, had exposed horrific animal cruelty, reported that to Sonoma County law enforcement many times, begged them to do something and to help these animals and to address the criminal cruelty, and they failed to do it. So at the Animal Liberation Conference in 2018, me, Wayne, and other animal rescuers, we went to Sunrise Farms and we started taking hens out of the cages, and we rescued these hens and got them veterinary care. And, I left with the chickens to get them care. Given my experience with taking care of chickens, that's what made the most sense at the time. And other people stayed and tried to go back. There had been this long negotiation with the police. The police had promised to do something, and they went back on their promise. And long story short, a bunch of people ended up getting arrested, including Wayne. And then a year later, a kind of similar thing happened at Reichart Duck Farm. And Reichart Duck Farm, again, had been exposed for criminal animal cruelty, horrific animal cruelty. I'll talk more about the recent investigation, but probably the worst animal cruelty I've ever seen is at Reichart Duck Farm. And repeatedly reported that to Sonoma County law enforcement. Again, they didn't do anything. So again, we took action ourselves. And we rescued ducklings, and people locked down at the slaughterhouse to try to stop the slaughter of these ducks. And people shut down the front gate of the facility and, just demanded that this facility should not be allowed to run as long as they're engaging in criminal misconduct against these animals. And instead of, again, addressing the cruelty, they arrested the activists who were trying to stop it. And Wayne was arrested that day as well, even though he legitimately was not a part of the lockdown or the rescue. He ended up getting looped into it anyway, just seen as a leader in the organization. And so it was for those two actions that he has now been convicted. He was the only one of the people arrested who ended up, they ended up taking him all the way to trial, likely because of, the perception of him as a leader. And they probably want to make an example of him. I'm sure there are a variety of reasons why they chose to really go against him and everything. So it's in those two cases that he got the felony conviction and 2 misdemeanor convictions and spent time in jail recently. And it was in response to that conviction that some of these new charges sort of have arisen. So they're a little bit tied together in a way.
No, and I think there's a lot to unpack here. And for everybody that doesn't know, can you explain Wayne in a short bit? Yeah.
Yeah. So Wayne Shung, he is the co-founder of Direct Action Everywhere, and he was the lead organizer of DXE at the time that those actions took place. He is no longer the lead organizer of DXE. He has another organization that he is working on now, The Simple Heart. But yeah, he's obviously been a huge advocate of the right to rescue and really pushed the open rescue movement here in the United States in recent years.
Yeah, heck of a guy. Seems to be putting his life on the line and I remember being on live stream with him as he was knocking on doors at the FBI or something like this, trying to get answers to some degree.
Yeah.
So he went to jail for how long was it recently?
So he was sentenced to 90 days. He served half of that because right now California has a half-time statute, which is basically, they're saying, the conditions in the jails right now are so bad in California due to understaffing that instead of making the conditions better, everyone just serves half-time. So he got out early on the bright side, but was a very miserable experience.
It's a funny way to do a criminal justice system, isn't it? Just
yeah.
We're full. Yeah. I mean, just don't break any more laws. Yeah. But when he gets out, there's stipulations still on his life of what he's supposed to be doing, right? What were the stipulations?
Right. So he's on probation for 2 years, and the main, rule that is most impactful to his life that he has to follow is that he has to stay away from 14 people who have been labeled his unindicted co-conspirators for the rescues that took place at Sunrise and Reichart. So that's me and 13 other people, many of his closest friends, people who he used to work with every day on animal rights, who he's now been told that he cannot have any contact with them. He cannot go within 100 yards of them, cannot speak to them on the phone, cannot speak to them through other people, and no contact at all.
And what about the dog thing? He's not supposed to have a dog. Is that right?
He can have a dog, but he's going on trial this this March for rescuing dogs. Yeah, but he recently made a video kind of joking, like, what next? Are they gonna make
Okay.
me, stay away from my
I was
dog?
worried.
Yeah, no,
I was.
hopefully they don't do that. They've kind of done that to me with
They've kind of,
birds.
yeah. That's what I
So
was going to say. That's your
who's
thing.
gonna
So
ask them to be like, oh, you can't have your dog anymore. You have to stay away from your dog.
yeah, this is why I believe it, because it happened to you. And
Yeah.
so you went to go visit him, right? Is that right? Or you went to the courthouse to see what was going on?
Yeah, I guess there's a few other kind of components that have led to my charges, and some of it ties very much into his trial and his sentencing hearing. But the thing that happened before all of that I'm being charged with, that I'm currently facing 4 felonies and 3 misdemeanors for, is a rescue that I did at the Petaluma Poultry Slaughterhouse this past June, where that all last spring we did a company-wide investigation of the Petaluma Poultry Company. I investigated one of their factory farms, found horrific animal cruelty and disease, and rescued 2 dying birds there. And then I rescued 4 chickens from their slaughterhouse who were abused and sick and injured in June. So that is one of the things I'm facing charges for and that I was arrested for. And then the other thing is a rescue that took place at Reichart Duck Farm, which again is one of the places that Wayne was sent to jail for activism at. And during Wayne's trial, I went back to Reichart Duck Farm for the first time since 2019. To just kind of see if the animal cruelty we'd exposed back in 2019 was still happening today. And unfortunately, we found that it absolutely is still happening today. And if anything, it's worse than ever. It really felt like things had only gotten worse, which is just so disturbing considering this isn't even the second time they've been investigated. They were also investigated back in 2014 by Mercy for Animals. They've had so many opportunities to make things better after being exposed so many times, and things have only gotten worse. So throughout the course of this investigation, we documented this horrific cruelty, rescued 2 dying ducks who I keep saying I just can't believe they survived. They were so incredibly sick. And the day that Wayne was convicted, that he was found guilty and taken into custody, right as he was being walked down the hallway in handcuffs, taken to the jail, we released this investigation at Reichart and the stories of River and Oakley to show, that we are not afraid, that we're going to keep the focus on the animals no matter what they try to do to us. And we went to the district attorney's office and tried to deliver a report describing all of the criminal animal cruelty we documented. The district attorney's office shut the door in our faces. They would not even talk to us or accept the report. I had to slide it under the door, which is just so ridiculous. Like, they're a public office that's supposed to serve the people, and they shut the door in my face and would not accept a report of a crime. So then, we all marched to the sheriff's office and delivered the report there. They made all these promises that they were going to forward the report to the Agriculture Crimes Unit. I followed up with them many times over the next several weeks, reported the cruelty to countless agencies, countless times. I don't even know how many times I reported to various agencies the cruelty that we documented at Reichart, and really got no substantial response from any of these agencies. I mean, I had someone at the USDA, the head of the Sonoma County USDA office, or the USDA office that oversees Sonoma County, and she told me this was not her area of expertise. Like, you head a USDA office. What is your area of expertise? So it was just ridiculous. And then at Wayne's sentencing hearing, so he'd been held in custody at that point for 30 days, but he hadn't yet actually been sentenced. So we had a sentencing hearing, and after he was sentenced, to 90 days in jail, we all started to march to the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office to, again, be like, hey, are you going to do something about the cruelty we reported to you a month ago? And as I was walking up to the office, I was, about to enter their parking lot. And I had a report. I had the same report as before, plus like a bunch of letters from veterinarians demanding action. Veterinarians who reviewed the footage from Reichart from 2014, 2019, and 2023. And a sheriff officer started walking towards me, and he said, Zoe, or no, maybe he said Miss Rosenberg. That's what he said. And there was this part of me that I don't know. I was being optimistic, and I was like, "Oh my God, they're coming to me for the report." So I was kind of like, "Wow, cool." So I was about to open my mouth and start, telling him all about the report that I had and all of the concerns that we had about Reichart, and ask if they'd done anything since the last report. And before I could even get a word out, he was just like, "We have a warrant for your arrest." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Oh my God. What did the warrant say?
Well, the warrant, there were actually, this was the other wild thing that day was, he says, he says there's a warrant. He says, "We have a warrant for your arrest," takes me to a detective interrogation room, and they bring in the warrant, and they show that, that there's 2 felonies and a couple misdemeanors relating to Reichart. They had search warrants for my electronic devices, and then the sheriff leaves. I'm like, okay, that's it. And then another detective comes in and says, "Oh, we have a second warrant for your arrest from Petaluma Poultry." So a detective from the Petaluma Police Department comes in, and there's 2 warrants for my arrest. I'm like, does this mean I'm getting arrested twice? They actually did book me twice at the jail. They fingerprinted me, took my mugshot and everything twice because there were 2 warrants for my arrest.
2 sets of handcuffs, yeah, just in case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dear Lord.
Yeah, so yeah, that was interesting. Wasn't expecting a double warrant, but yeah, that's what happened.
So what was the interaction like when you go into this place and you're talking to all these people? They look at animal rights activists like we're crazy. How did they treat you? And then what happened after that?
The sheriff's office, they were mostly nice. It's hard to know what they think of the whole thing. Obviously they probably, deal with actual dangerous criminals, people who've, shot people and stuff. So it's hard to know if they're what they think of this situation. If they're like, why do we have to deal with this? Or if they really just think we're so annoying that they love the opportunity to mess with us. I'm really not sure what they're thinking. The officer who arrested me was, for the situation, he wasn't too bad. One of the other people who was arrested that day for a warrant for Reichart as well, the officer was really rough with him. So, kind of depends on the officer, but we had him have this reputation at the Sonoma County courthouse, and the courthouse and the jail and the sheriff's department, they're all next to each other, and the DA's office is in the same building. So it's all very connected. And we kind of have a reputation in that whole little area that we're the chicken people. So whenever we show up, you just hear mutterings of, "Oh, the chicken people are back." So
we're not going anywhere either.
Yeah. So everyone knows what's going on, and I'm sure everyone has, different opinions about it. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah.
Let me tell you something, folks. We're not going anywhere, okay? Animal rights activists, we're not going anywhere. We're getting stronger and we're getting organized. So
absolutely. Yeah.
So but then after the fact, what happened after?
Yeah, so I was held in custody for until late at night. I ended up I have a medical device that I really can't survive without, and they were going to take my medical device if I remained in custody. So I ended up bailing out, and I showed up at court a couple weeks later, expecting it to just be a, regular follow-up hearing to an arrest, which normally looks like just issuing a plea. So my expectation of that court date was that I would just tell the judge that I plead not guilty, and then things would proceed from there. It's usually like this long process, but where not much happens until right before trial. And I was very wrong. That is not what happened at all that day. I showed up for court, and that day I had a public defender, and she pulled me outside and said that the prosecutors planned to ask that I be put on pretrial release level 3. So normally in the past when I've been arrested, I've been released on my own recognizance, and that's always really been our experience within DXC in general. I don't think we've had people either released on bail or released on their own recognizance, and that's really the only thing we've ever had in the past. So I'd never before been on pretrial release, let alone pretrial release level 3, which is the highest level in Sonoma County that you can be on. So, and part of pretrial release level 3 is an ankle monitor. So she told me that they want you to wear an ankle monitor and adhere to all these different conditions. So I was just kind of shocked because I was not expecting this at all. And so we go back in the courtroom. And I'm still kind of thinking in my head, like, they're not going to, like, this judge is going to be like, this is ridiculous. She rescued a couple ducks and a few chickens. Like, I'm not going to put an ankle monitor on her. She's not a threat to the public. But they proceed to convince the judge that I need to adhere to all of these strict conditions. And the thing that one of the prosecutors told the judge, he said, she's not going to stop. She said she's not going to stop. And I'm like, oh, you're right. I did say that. I did say I'm not going to stop. that much is fair. No. But I still am not a threat to the public.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah. So yeah, that was ridiculous. And then they just started listing like all of these ridiculous pretrial release conditions that I have to adhere to. So, and if I violate any of these conditions, then they could hold me in custody until my trial. So these conditions are that I can't leave my home county without telling my pretrial officer. So every time I want to leave the county, I have to call and say that I'm leaving the county. I can't leave the state of California without permission from a judge. I obviously have an ankle monitor. I am subject to warrantless searches and seizures of my person, property, and residence at any reasonable time of the day or night. And I think those are the main ones. The most I have to stay 100 yards away from Petaluma Poultry, Reichart Duck Farm, and Sunrise Farms. Sunrise Farms is not even part of this case, so I don't know how the prosecutors managed to slide that one in there. But I'm not allowed, it doesn't matter, I'm not allowed to enter any properties anyways where animals are being raised for meat, dairy, or eggs, which is like so ridiculous. How I could accidentally enter a property without knowing that, like, if I'm, it's
sure.
just, I go for a hike. Sometimes there's cows, grazing in the field. I'm like, I don't know if they're being raised for food. And then the most bizarre condition is that I have been barred from possessing chickens, ducks, and other fowl.
And why exactly? Because you might love them and treat them nice?
I guess so. The explanation on that one was not quite clear to me, but I assume it's just that they don't want me to aid in rescuing them. I'm obviously, I've got a lot of experience taking care of these animals. Maybe they figure that even if other people rescue them, I might still be integral in caring for them after they're rescued. Who knows what they're thinking? But yeah, I'm not allowed to have these birds.
It's typical for It's just typical for governments and stuff, or police and courts and stuff, to try to it's more also to dehumanize and humiliate and, repress you in any way possible to make you think twice about what you did, which.
Yeah, absolutely. But, with all of this, you know, it's still nothing compared to what the animals are going through. And I mean, even if things get worse than they are right now in terms of the repression I'm facing, it still won't be anything compared to what the animals are going through. So it's a sacrifice that I'm willing to make, and I'm consenting to these, this repression and this risk. I've, done the actions I've done, and the animals, on the other hand, aren't consenting to be brutally abused and slaughtered and
Yeah.
spend every second of every day in misery.
And
And what they're facing is
and that
worse.
and that strength that you're admitting there and showing the world that say we care and we're not going to stop. This scares them, and this is why the punishments are so over the top. When Wayne went in, I know they said they're going to cut the head off this dragon or whatever they said. They're going to cut the head off the snake. And
Mm-hmm.
they don't realize we're like a hydra where you cut off one head, three prop up in its place. Like,
Yeah.
we're not going to stop. And I think that's part of why they go after us so much. And it's, profit motivated agriculture in California is big money, big money. So have you sort of re-strategized or thought in another way to organize as you're facing all this stuff? I mean, once they close the door, you kind of got to find a window and go that way, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now my focus has been on honestly just trying to get as many people to hear about this as possible. I think, when people hear that someone is being prosecuted and being forced to wear an ankle monitor and facing, maybe over 20 years in prison for rescuing a couple ducks and a few chickens, people like, it piques people's interest. They want to hear more, and they realize how ridiculous that is. And I want to, use this as much as possible to get people to not to hear about me, but to hear about what the animals are going through. Because in the end of the day, I want to bring it back to them. I want people to understand the plight of the animals. That's what this is all about.
Mm. Do you think, I mean, you've been doing this for a while. Do you think the movement by itself, are we making progress?
I think so. And I mean, even just the rescue of animals is so threatening to this industry. And in a way, like, this repression that I'm facing makes me realize how fragile this system is, that they think like this entire system could be taken down by the rescue of a couple ducks and a few chickens and a 21-year-old girl. Is the system really that fragile that you feel the need to use so many resources to just shut up one person? I think it really just shows what a fragile system it is and how much power we have over it, and that we can, if we really, put our minds to it, we can make incredible waves to help animals. And we already have. I mean, we've banned the sale of fur in this entire state of California. And, we've had groundbreaking acquittals and other right to rescue trials, at the Smithfield trial in rural Utah, where, no one really thought we were going to win that one. A jury was able to feel inspired by the stories of two dying little piglets on the floor of a factory farm making their way to freedom. And they found Wayne and his co-defendant, Paul Darwin Picklesheimer, not guilty of theft for rescuing these two baby pigs. And in response, I mean, I don't know if you've heard about this, but Utah has passed two laws in response to this acquittal, because they don't want this acquittal to happen again, because they realize how powerful the stories of these rescued animals are. They passed a law shortly after that trial, explicitly making it illegal to rescue animals, even if they are sick and have no value to a factory farm or to a company. And just like a week ago, they passed a law preemptively banning animal personhood in the state of Utah. So just bizarre legislation, because again, I know it sounds like, oh, are these trials backfiring if this is happening in response? But I really think it shows that no, they're so threatened by this because they realize that these trials could just have bigger implications. I mean, these trials could, in an appeals court, lead to legal personhood for animals that could have groundbreaking ramifications.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. Holy shit. Uh, God, that really just pisses me off. I mean, pardon my
Yeah.
French, but this is just pisses me off. So, I
Yeah.
mean, we've had ag gag laws forever too. It's like people. Do you think that the jury who was there a jury for that case in Utah?
Yes. Yeah. It was a
So,
jury trial, and yeah, it was
so,
remarkable.
so that must have been part of the thing because these are regular people who actually start to comprehend about what's happening here. And I'm sure some of them are probably meat eaters. Like they still eat meat, but everybody
Yeah.
lives under it's predicated on the idea that, hey, we're all doing the humane slaughter, which me and you, we don't buy the whole thing. But at the same time, normal meat eaters want that ethical animal welfare, minimal standard for the animals that they do consume. And we're not even doing that in these places, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, so much evidence was excluded from the Smithfield trial too, which is really interesting. Like they weren't allowed to talk about any of the animal cruelty evidence outside of like the very narrow conditions of the two piglets who were rescued. There was this, it was almost funny. They literally like they'd physically printed out pieces of evidence to hand to the jurors, and there was a photo of one of the piglets, and you could see other abused animals in the background of the photo, and the judge literally made Wayne and his team cut like with scissors cut around the piglet who was rescued so that they could only be handed that part of the picture. So the jury just gets handed this like cut up picture, and they're just sitting there thinking, what is so bad that you had to cut it out of the picture?
Right. When it backfires, the whole thing,
Right.
the whole premise of you doing that backfires. Obviously,
Exactly.
there was something back there. Oh my
Yeah,
God,
like,
dude.
and they're, maybe they're even imagining something worse than it was. Who knows?
Yeah, good. I mean, good. At the end of the day, background, no background, normal people get the idea like, this isn't
Yeah.
right. This is not right. And also, I think people are getting fed up with big business, corporations, capitalism, sort of mowing over everybody in its path
Yeah.
and stuff. So that's good.
Absolutely.
And we have that on the side. So if anybody who's watching, who should we be writing? Well, Sonoma County, obviously, the DA in Sonoma County. I've written to them already on your guys' behalf, and said some awful, awful things to them, insulted their mothers and so on and so forth. No, but who else should we be contacting or bothering, and via what medium?
Yeah, I mean the thing that I want more than anything is for them to prosecute the companies that are abusing animals, whether they continue to prosecute me or not. The most important thing to me is that the animals get out of this horrible situation that they're in. So, contacting the district attorney's office and the sheriff's office. I mean, they're really the ones who have the power to prosecute Reichart Duck Farm and help the ducks. And we actually, and there's a form if people want to fill out a form to contact the district attorney's office. There's a form at helptheducks.com that people can use to ask the Sonoma County District Attorney's Office to prosecute Reichart Duck Farm for criminal animal cruelty.
I just want to say
Yeah, so
helptheducks.com. There will be a link down in the description. So if you're watching this, just scroll down there, click on the thing, fill out the form. It'd be great help.
yeah, we appreciate more people contacting them for sure and putting more pressure on these institutions so that they realize that they can't just keep ignoring this horrific abuse.
Yeah. Look, you've been vegan longer than I have. You've been vegan for what, 10, 12 years? How long have you been vegan now?
I guess 10 years now.
On a lighter note, what's your favorite vegan meals, huh? Just give me a recipe.
Good question. I've been having a lot of lentil stews recently that I've been making. Just a stew with like lentils and potatoes and vegan ground
Ooh,
beef and carrots, and yeah, it's
that
pretty
sounds good.
simple, but it's really good. Yeah.
Well, as because we're talking, if you start talking about meat and how it's,
Yeah.
how the horrible thing and it should stop, and then people want to know, well, what else am I supposed to eat? And vegans know, well, there's plenty to eat. So um,
Yeah.
you just mentioned lentils, right? Lentils are like the magic secret of vegan diets, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Very nutritious, and yeah, lentils are great.
Yeah, I love a good lentil. People call them vegan diets. People get worried about it. I like to call them bean diets because it's mostly beans, right? It's mostly legumes. Call it a
Yeah.
bean diet. Maybe people won't be so scared, but
Yeah. And I mean, I think too, beyond veganism, there's so many ways people can also just get engaged in helping animals to do, I mean, hopefully more. I'm not saying people shouldn't be vegan, but hopefully to go beyond that and do more than just change your personal lifestyle, but also attend protests and get involved in your local community for animal rights. There's, people will be surprised. There's probably some sort of animal rights community near you. And if not, maybe you can start one.
yeah. And also, we have the internet, so we can all connect, over the web, as it were. But there are many different types of animal activism that we've seen now. And I know these got these guys in the streets with TV screens or whatever, that show some of this stuff, and then they sit there and have conversations. Are there, in your direct action, are there other things that you think are an effective way to do activism on behalf of animals?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are so many ways we can take action for animals, and I'm a huge advocate of nonviolent direct action type organizing tactics. Doing protests, whether that's on a sidewalk or um, you know wherever, anywhere that you can be heard and make your voice heard. Disruptions, which are basically protests, but just a little more disruptive, I guess. Whether that's inside of a grocery store or disrupting a sports game. And I think it's so important that people really hear about what's happening to animals, even if it's like a disruption to their daily routine, especially at places where the violence towards animals is normalized, like a grocery store and a restaurant, because we're kind of saying like, hey, like, there are bodies of animals being sold right here. And that seems so normal to you. Let me give you a different perspective. Let me disrupt
Yeah.
this normalcy and tell you about these animals. And I think that's really important. But banner drops, where people drop banners over the side of a freeway, sticky notes or stickers. You can, even just write on a sticky note, something about a fact about animal agriculture and put it on products being sold at the grocery store that make people stop and think about it. I just think it's so important that we really just get people to start thinking in whatever ways that we can, and target local institutions like, in Sonoma County, the sheriff's department, that are upholding this system and allowing what's happening to animals to continue.
And we're not talking about doing something massively illegal, folks. Don't go out there and do anything that, get you in trouble. Wink, wink. Um, when you talk to people, I know we talk when animal rights friends of mine, we get together, we talk about cognitive dissonance. One of the big reasons why some people are having trouble realizing that animals are sort of living, sentient. They play, they love, they grieve, they poop, they live. Just the same as us. What do you think stops a lot of people from seeing things the way we see it?
I mean, I think so many people are really disconnected from animals. I mean, so many people have never met a chicken, which is just so bizarre. Like, there are more chickens than humans,
How you
but
doing?
but how many people have actually met a chicken? And if they have met a chicken, they've probably just seen them in the distance somewhere, or they've never actually like sat down with them and spent time with them. Certainly, I mean, we have Happy Hen Animal Sanctuary, and people come and meet the animals. I'm always shocked how many people, it's like their first time meeting a pig or meeting some animal, and they're like 80 years old. I'm like, how have you never
Wow.
met a pig before? Have you never met a chicken before? I mean, people are so disconnected from these animals, and I think that's a huge part of the issue. Most people obviously have, spent time with dogs and cats at least, but it's just so reinforced in our society, this idea that, farmed animals are different than dogs and cats in some mysterious way. I mean, I felt that way for the longest time as a kid too. I loved dogs and cats. I wanted to help dogs and cats, but I never spared really much of a thought to chickens and other farmed animals. And I had this idea in my head that, society taught me that chickens were stupid. And I just didn't think much of them. And when my family got chickens, that's what challenged my perspective. It was spending time with these animals and meeting them and realizing that they have unique personalities, that they have favorite foods, that, they're so smart. They, will knock on the door for treats with their beaks, and they're just so clever. And that made me realize they were just like the dogs and cats I'd grown up with. They really, in the ways that matter, they're different in some ways, of course, but in the ways that matter, they were exactly the same.
Well, I think the intelligence is like overrated in some sense, because one of the excuses that these people use is like, well, humans are smarter, and so that's why we get to eat them all or whatever. But it's like building big machinery to like do a Holocaust or like to beat your wife or something. These aren't like, we're one of the most violent, primitive like people. I think animals are actually good people. Like animals don't do any of that stuff. They're right. I mean, humans are like the most dangerous animal.
Absolutely. And this whole notion of intelligence is so silly, because like we basically, like, how do you even determine what that means? The way that humans have decided to determine what intelligence means in other species is, well, how human-like are they? Do they think the way we think? We frame everything about us and about ourselves as if we're some superior being. And it's like, well, I don't think some other species is any less smart. They probably think in very different ways from us. They probably perceive the world very differently, but different isn't less.
Right.
It's just because we can't understand them doesn't mean they're stupid. That's like our own fault.
Yeah, like an octopus can see 256 colors more than we can, and he can camouflage himself. I would call that smart.
Yeah. And from their perspective, they could be like, wow, those humans are so stupid. They can't do all these things I can do.
Bunch of idiots. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then again, if they wanted to use the argument, well, intelligence is important for who you eat or whatever, then you should know that pigs are the 6th most intelligent creatures on earth and that they're smarter than dogs. So then where's your argument then,
Yeah. And there's no one argues that you should be able to eat a baby, a human, because they're not very smart as babies or whatever. No one's using that argument.
A very small minority, maybe.
Maybe a few people. No, but yeah, I would assume would be very easy to argue that a newborn baby is probably stupider than any non-human animal.
That's a great argument, and I need to use that next time I get into a thing with a carnivore. I'm gonna give that one a try. Yeah. The arguments, and I love veganism because on this show we do a lot of corporate malfeasance, and we do everything. We do a lot of stuff. What's wrong with everybody? What's wrong with humanity? But the animal rights thing, it's one of the easiest things to debate because it's one of the silliest things that we do is put ourselves above animals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes no sense.
What a world. Yeah. So you have to promise me that you'll come back and you'll give us, update on what's going on with you, and always keep us around, because anything that you got to say, I want to tell the people. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll see what'll happen. We've got 2 court appearances this week, which I've learned to stay, they've keeping me on my toes. I never know what's going to happen at these hearings anymore. Might leave with a second ankle monitor. Who knows?
Yeah, two sets of handcuffs, 2 ankle monitors, one for each leg. we're rooting for you. I'm going to try to get this to as many people as I can. Is there anything that you want to add right before we go?
Just that I hope people will take action for animals any way that you can. I think, everyone just needs to do something, whatever it is that you feel capable of doing. Please do it, because this movement is going to take all of us. What animals are facing is just so huge, and they need every ounce of help that they can get. So please take action however you can.
Yeah. And for all the animal rights people, if we need to raise money for her legal stuff, let's do it. Let's see if we can donate and keep all of us who get in trouble for doing the right thing, with proper legal representation. Because I know you said you're the public defender. It would be nice if you went in there with an army of lawyers, and
Well,
were able to
I
defend
have
you.
a private counsel now, and yeah,
Good.
I have a great legal team, and yeah, I'm excited to take this to trial and challenge this ridiculous case and share the stories of these animals.
Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to see what the outcome is, and everybody out there, go vegan, do what you can. I want to thank Zoe Rosenberg, just a wonderful, exemplar human being, a model for everyone. Please keep doing what you're doing, and come back and see us again. Okay.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you having me.